And for the when I received it from help desk, then I will be mentions on it lah. But usually for this subjects on the assessment part, first thing you will have the article reading set for the criticize part is one of your assignment, and then you need to be preparing for your proposal. And another thing is about the proposal presentations. Usually will be like this, but I'm not sure that does that have any changes. But when I received it for the overall assessment things, and I will go through together with all of you first. But one thing that is actually we need to be going through is thinking about your research topics and also for overall for chapter one to three, chapter 1 to 3, then you need to be done for your final submissions for the assessment things is because they will be ongoing to be going into your research project. Okay. So today, these chapters, we begin with the introduction to the research, which is the foundation skills for all educators and professionals also. Research is not only about the scientific or academic things. It's a way of thinking that help us understanding the world more deeply and more informed decisions. So it means that we as educators, we need to become the researcher also. Research allows us to observe the children's carefully, understand their develop, and design appropriate teaching strategies. It's also helped us move beyond assumptions and based on our practice into evidence. So it means that what you have been learned inside the class, the theoretical things that, and also the strategies that you have been learned on, then how you're ever to be applied in your real life situation is a part that is a fundamental of about the research also. So when we talk about research, we are actually exploring how the knowledge is acquired, and it's include asking the question, collecting the information, analyze the data, and drawing the meaningful conclusions over on it. So this is actually is a path that you will be going through for the research methodology and after that for the research project. It's a scientific method that is a process in a structured and systematic way to ensuring that our findings are relevant and valid. So through this course, you will be learned not just about the research, is how you're able to apply in the real life context, especially in the classroom, in the families, and how you're able to be integrated into the communities. So by the end, you should be able to think critically, ask a meaningful question, and use your research as a tool to improve your professional practice. Later, we one by one to go through the topics that all 6 of you have been choosing on. Then one thing that I want you to prepare for next week class, you actually need to be prepared and go through the 3 topics that why you want to be choosing these 3 topics. And you need to be finding on some of the research and theoretical backgrounds among your topics. Okay. But of course, you can be using all these AI tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Cloud to helping you to do the researching for the overall things that you want to be do for. Okay. But one thing that's very important that is actually you really need to be understand 你自己选择这个 topics, 你背后的 theory, and also what the research methods that you will be choosing on to doing your research. Later I will be going through then you will be more understanding about this part. But I am going first. Okay. So for this lesson, you will be we actually will be focused on 4 key learning objectives. Firstly, is about we will be explore about the methods of knowledge. This means that understanding the different way how we gaining the knowledge, such as through experience, through observation, through authority or scientific inquiry. Okay, so what we talking about here as the authority is about the research theoretical fundamental base that however to be support us on amongst the knowledge things. So it's actually important because not all knowledge because not all knowledge is equally relevant. So this one is actually is a part that we will be touching on about the method of the knowledge things. And then secondly, we will be define the educational research. You will be learn that what research means in the context of education and why it's important for teachers especially for under the early childhood setting. It's helped us to make informed and effective teaching decisions. So educational research 名副其实就是教育研究哦。如果我们在谈到研究的这件事情的部分，教育的研究名副其实就是在谈到跟教育相关的系统之下哈。Then of course we are studying early childhood education. So this is why we will be concentrate on doing the education early childhood under early childhood setting. One of you have been mentioned about the transitions amount. Actually, this one is really the real life situations among what you have been experienced. Okay, it's because it's at least the topics that you have been doing on. The way I know is your real life situation is I really know because of your work class, and then the questions that you will be asking on is more likely is what you have been experienced, and then it's actually it's a real life context that be happening also. Okay. Then thirdly, we will be examining the characteristic and criteria of the good research. It's including for understanding what makes research systematically, objective, and trustworthy, as well as how you identify a group research problems. So finally, fourth, we will be looked into the research process. You will be knows about the basic step involved from identifying a problem to collecting and analyzing the data. So by the end of the lessons, you will be have a clearer foundation to begin thinking like a researcher in your professional practice. Okay, so now we're going on. Firstly, it's about we explore the different methods of the acquiring knowledge based on the that mentions by health standard. Okay, this one is a framework that we mentioned by health standard. Understanding this method is actually will help us become more critical and reflective as educators also. Firstly, it's about your belief. Belief refers to what we accept a true based on the personal value or cultural inference. While meaningful belief are not always based on the evidence. OK， 所以我们其实信念这件事情，它有时候是我的相信的这件事情，并不一定是 based on evidence 哈。Okay, the next is an institution, which is our immediate understanding of our feelings. Okay, teachers often use the intuitions in the classroom, but it should be supported with more relevant methods. So this is actually is a part set among the knowledge also. Then authority means that getting the knowledge from experts such as textbook, lectures, or professional. While useful is actually is very important to question and not accept everything blindly. Okay, although authority is actually is a fundamental among the research, but sometimes we will be through the evidence base, the research that you've been doing on, and then to be really to be finding out the reliability of the authority also. 所以我们有一些研究是会实证这个 framework 的一个过程。虽然可能某某某某谁他 come out 这样子的一个 framework， 然后但是你的研究呢是透过转换不同的 context 之下，你重新再做这个研究，那这个 framework 它到底是适合的吗？不适合的吗？在这个 context 之下。So this one is actually is among what means that authority part, okay? But of course, when we are doing our literature review, actually we will be among the getting the informations among the authority, and then you will be coming up some things that is on your own perspective. Okay, so another part is the rationale, means that using the logical and reasoning to understand the concept. It's very important progress that to forming up the clear and structured thinking among your research. And experience is refers to the learning through direct interaction and observation, which very common in our early childhood education settings also. Okay, so towards what you have been observed and what you have direct interact with the children and family, then this is actually a part of your experience part. Then finally, it's a scientific. It's the most systematic and relevant method involving observation, data collection, and evidence-based conclusion. So as educators, we should learn to balance these methods while prioritizing the evidence-based practice in our teaching. Okay, so that means that 6 pathway that be mentioned by Helmstander is courage into our understanding of knowledge, belief, intuitions, rationale, experience, science, and authority. Each actually represent a distinct way of human come to know and understanding the world around us. So this one is actually is a part that firstly we need to know we are doing the research is actually it's not about doing the research only. It's more likely towards study for research methodology and down your research project is helping you to be really understanding how this world are going to. 所以你做研究的这件事情不是为了要毕业，而是在这个过程当中，你预备好你自己成为一个就是有批判性思考能力的一个幼儿教育者。This one is actually is a main reason among why you're taking for both research methodology and research projects. So what is actually research means? It's a systematic and scientific process used to investigate problem and find a relevant answer. It's not just about guessing or giving the opinion. It's structures and control based on the evidence. So it means that when we are saying for the research is scientific, it means that it must follow the clear procedure. When it's controlled, it ensures the fairness and reduce the bias also. So when it's coming into more systematic, it follow the organized step to reach the valid conclusions also. So the purpose of the research is very important, especially under the education. Firstly, it's help us to discover the new knowledge, allowing us to better understanding how the children's learning. And second, it's help us to improve our educational practice also, so that we can be teach more effectively. Then it can be informed the policy maker to helping shape better education system also. But of course, when we are talking the policy maker out here, it's not only talking about influence our government. It's more likely under your school-based system also. So the 3 core steps out here. Firstly, we pose a question. Second, we collect the data to answer the question. Then finally, we present the finding clearly. So this is actually is a 3 things that what we want to be achieved under when we are doing research. Okay, so when you are thinking about your research question, it's actually research topic. It's actually you are starting to pose a question. 你为什么会想要做这个研究题目？就是因为你有这个疑问，你想要找到答案。Then after that, you need to start thinking about, okay, how I ever to be finding the answer, collecting the data, amount to answering this question. Then lastly, when you collecting back the data, you answering the questions that among the topics that you have been giving out. So this one is actually is about the research, and it's actually help us to make the informed decisions, not just rely on the assumption. 所以你选你的 topic 的时候也是，如果有一些 topic 是比较难用它只是一个 assumptions， 或者是它时间性太长的话，那可能你就要去思考，你这一次没有办法做这个研究。Like for example, one of you actually are more likely, one of the topics is more likely is more on longitudinous perspective methods that to be finding out. 我在谈到 longitudinous 的这个部分是，它必须要有一个长期性，有一个时间轴，或者是你要做回溯。那如果你要做回溯的话，那你要怎么做？This one is actually the things that under the chapter 3 that you will be talking about. That actually is talking about the research method that you are using on how to be answering your question. Okay, but for the chapter 1. That actually is more likely is you will be introduced what actually your research are doing on. And chapter 2 is the literature review. You will be reading others research articles, research all the fundamental of the theories that you are using on to doing your research and also the frameworks. Okay, so this one is actually is about the 3 core steps that, but of course we now are more likely is more concentrate on pose the questions first. Okay, so the topics that you are throw out is actually is the questions that you actually are inquiry on it also. Okay, so Let's take a moment to reflect on this post quotes about the research, okay? Albert's sense on J have been mentioned about that. Research is to see what everybody else has seen and think what nobody else has taught. Okay? He reminds us that research is not always about discovering something completely new, but about seeing familiar things in a different way. In education, it means that observing children carefully and thinking deeper about their behavior and learning process. Okay, so and another quote that we mentioned by Albert Einstein, he highlights that research involves uncertainty. Okay, if we knew what it was we were doing, it do not be called as research. If we already knew all the answer, there would be no need for research already. Okay, so means that when you are doing your topics also, 如果你已经知道那个 answer 了，那其实你的 topic 是根本不需要再做的哦。So this actually, research actually encourages us to be curious, open-minded, and willing to explore the unknown. Okay. Then finally, Albert Einstein also says that play is the highest form of research. It's actually, if you think research as a play things, it will be interesting also. Okay, so like for example, when the children play, they are actually experimenting and learning about the world. So play is not just a fun; it's a nature form of inquiry and discovering also. So this one is actually the attitude that we need to be have also as educators. This actually remind us that research is not limited to be formal study. It's happen everyday observation, reflection, and interaction with the children. Okay, so this is actually is the things that what we as educators, we actually are every day we are doing the action research also. 如果你会觉察到班上的需要，或者是整个环境的状态需要的时候，你下一步你会开始去思考、去改变，或者是透过一些方式来去做记录、统计、观察孩子的行为。This one is actually is a process of the research already. Okay, like for example, last time, because most of or I think all of you actually from diploma, you have been taking for the special needs that subject. Okay, we have been using for the ABC method, ABC model, to doing the antecedent behavior and consequences to see about what is actually causes for the behavior of the children. This one is actually is one of the methods that we doing observation. And towards if you keep continuous using this method to finding out the children's behavior pattern, then after that you start to thinking about the intervention strategies coming in, then you towards the progress that for trying for the intervention strategies that is able to helping the children, then this one is a progress that you are doing the research also. 我们在谈到行动研究的这个部分，其实就是在做研究的一个过程当中哈。Okay, so now we look at the research as a systematic process, meaning that follow the clear and organized step to ensure the relevance of the result. Firstly, is we need to formulate a hypothesis or research questions. Then this involves identifying a problem and developing a clear test-ever idea. So it's like, for example, okay, it could be like the questions like, does play-based learning improve children's engagement? Okay, this one is actually is the research questions that you are asking on. Does play-based learning improve children's engagement inside the classroom? So this is when you start to thinking about the research questions out here. Next step is we need to be designing the study. This means that designing the methods and selecting the participants and planning how the research will be carried out. So the good design actually ensures that the data collected will be meaningful and relevant to answering your research question. Okay, like for example here, does play-based learning improve children engagement? Okay, you can be type the answer inside the chat box for me. 如果这个问题 okay, does play-based learning improve children engagement? 你觉得如果你要做这个研究的时候， 有什么东西你要去思考到，来去 collecting the data? What methods are how you will be collecting the data to answering this research question? Does play-based learning improve children's engagement? 所以你要收集什么资料才能够 answer 这个 question? Then you can text your answer inside the chat box. Okay, this is my questions. Does play-based learning improve children engagement? 如果这个是你的 research questions 的话，那你觉得你要用什么方式来去收集资料？还有using what method to be collecting the data? Maybe the method that will be have the observation, interview, and assessment. Okay, others have been answering the question to collect and understand the different theories of the play-based learning. Okay, 为什么你要 collect and understanding the different theory of play-based learning? 这边问的问题是这样子哦 ，play-based 它会让孩子在学习上有更多的参与度吗？如果你要看到什么东西？这个问题当中 Okay, Janice, you mentioned about the experiment. What experiment you have been doing on? Try to learn a lesson using the play-based strategies and observe the children learning outcome. Okay, what is the learning outcome for the children? 这边谈到的 learning outcome 是什么？
各方面的，可以是可能他学数学啊，看有没有学到数学，或者是还有没有学习语言沟通那种。
OK，我问这个问题是你的 questions 啊，is actually is my questions 啊。你看哦，这个常常是你们做研究时候会出现的挑战。好，因为你自己丢了这个问题之后，你丢了这个题目之后，但是你不太清楚你要回答什么问题。OK，why I asking for what is the learning outcome at here? It's actually is a children engagement. Okay, so this one is does play-based learning will be improved children engagement. Okay, Alice mentions that here to collect and understanding the different theories of the play-based learning. 其实这个不能够用 theories only. Okay, but of course we will be using the theories of the play-based learning. But one thing that we need to be know about, Priscilla being dropped at here, is a lesson using play-based strategies. Okay, 好 ，Jenny 也丢了 experiment。好，其实我们也可以用 experiment 的方式哈。但是 experiment based, if I choosing the method of the experiment based, what I need to be doing on is actually you need to be comparing two groups of children. One is what Priscilla have been mentioned on, try to run a lesson using the play-based strategies and observe the children's learning outcome. So the learning outcome is actually is engagement of the children. 所以你做 experiment 的时候，如果 OK，因为 Genevieve drop 这个词哈，所以我就用这个概念来讲。OK，this one is actually is a method that you are doing for collecting data。所以你会选两个 group for participants. One group is the children that will not running for the play-based lesson, but one group of children are running for the play-based. So you will be collecting the data together for the children's for both sides for the engagement under the play-based with play-based and non-play-based part. 那这个部分点又有一个问题了，你要怎么样去 assess your engagement? So this is actually is the step that you need to be thinking how you're gathering the data. Okay, you may using the observation, maybe you will be using the assessment. Okay, so another thing is that maybe you will be interviews the teachers, but of course this one is actually is more likely you need to be assess the children's. is because you need to be knows about the children's engagement. 所以你变成说你在这边你定义这个 students engagement 的部分，你要很清楚知道你的 engagement 是什么，他专心吗？然后还是他的参与度是怎么样？可是这个有时候又很抽象哦，因为别人去定义孩子的参与度的这件事情。So this is why you need to be thinking about coming up the checklist or coming up the observations tools to helping you to do the assessment, to find out the outcomes that, the learning outcomes that you mentioned here. Okay, so this one is the steps that how we collecting the data. How maybe you will be using observation, interviews, or assessment. This one is depending on what you want to be collect. Okay, so observation usually is one of the most common and valuable tools that using in the early childhood education settings also. Then finally, we need to analyze the data and decide whether it's accept or reject the hypothesis. Then these steps will be draw the conclusion based on the evidence, not the assumptions that you are being mentioned. Okay, but of course, 这个部分点在这个过程当中，我们谈到 quantity and quality 的时候，它角度就有点不同。We will be deeper to coming into that part. Okay, but now we go on first. Okay, so what is the key characteristic of the research, which help us understanding what make research credible and meaningful? Firstly, it's about the research empirical and replicable. This means that based on the observed evidence about the findings can be repeated in the different setting. So in education, this ensures that the teaching strategies are relevant and not just one-time results. 所以这个部分是第一个点。Then coming into second is logical and theoretical. It's grounded in a clear reasoning and connected with the existing theory to help us build on what is already known rather than starting from zero. And it must be flexible and incremental. It means that should be practical to carry out and should contribute step by step to accessing the knowledge rather than trying to solve everything at once. Then fourth, it's open to scrutiny. It can be reviewed, questions, and evaluated by others also, which is strengthened for the credibility. Means that is transparent and subject to peer review and critical examination. So overall research begins with a clear question, follow a structured plan, then focus on solving the problem systematically. So we applying this principle is actually, it will be help us to ensure our practice are thoughtful and evidence-based. Okay, so under the education research, they'll have the three key things aspects. Well, firstly is the purpose, nature, and the scope. Okay, so first we need to be knows about the purpose of the educational research is to solve the problems and improve the teaching and learning. It helps us as educators make better decisions to enhance our classroom practice and support children's development. So it means that research also support training and professional growth. Then next is the nature of the research. It refers to the characteristic and meaning. Educational research is systematic, evidence-based, and connected to the real-life teaching situation. It means that in both understanding both theory and practice, especially in the dynamic environments like in the early childhood classroom setting. Then finally is the scope of the educational research. It explains the different types of the research approach. This includes the historical research, which study past events, and descriptive research, which describe the current situation, then experimental research, which tests the cause and effect relationship. OK， 所以刚刚我们那个其实可以做 cause and effect 的部分啊 ，but it can be as a actions research, which focus on improving the practice within a specific classroom or setting. 因为你要看到这个 play-based improving 的话，那你就会用一 group 的小朋友来去ongoing 跑这个 play-based approach。那你发现在这个部分当中，小朋友的 engagement 增加了之后，你在每一个环节 for daily routine 的每一个环节，你都 switch play-based 的东西进来之后， 那小朋友的 daily engagement 会不会 improve? So this one is actually is more likely is among the actions research part. Okay, so overall for the education research is connected to the knowledge, practice, and improvement. So as educators, understanding the purpose, nature, and scope, it will be help us become more reflective and effective in our teaching. So classify of the research. Okay, here's is the classifications of the research, different types of the research based on our purpose and application. Okay, firstly, basic research actually focus on generating the new knowledge. It's mainly theoretical and aim to expand our understanding of the concept without immediate practical use. For example, studying how children develop language skills over the time. But for the applied research, it's more practical. Usually we are more applied based and actions. Okay, it means that to solve the real world problems, especially in education setting, for instance, finding effective strategies to improve the children reading skills inside the classroom. Okay, this one is more on applied based. Then thirdly is the evaluation research looks at the value of effectiveness of the program. This helps us to determine whether a teaching method or curriculum intervention is working well and achieving its goals or no. 所以我们可能已经有一套方式了，然后我要去 evaluate 这套 methods 会适合吗？ Or like one of you have been mentioned about the social emotional learning things. It's actually if you have a one curriculum about the social emotional learning, then you want to be evaluate that curriculum is really helping the children or not. Then this one is the ways that you are using on to evaluate the methods, teaching method or the curriculum or the interventions methods that you want to be helping the children. Then finally is the action research. It's conducted by practitioners such as teachers to solve the specific problems in your own classroom. It's very practical and directly linked to the improving teaching and learning. Okay, so this one is actually is a classifications of the research part. And then the other one we will be talking about is the quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative research focus on numerical data. It's involved collecting information using the structured tools like survey, task, checklist. Then the data is analyzed using the statistic method to identify the patterns or the relationship. For example, a teacher might measure how many children improve their reading score after using the new teaching method. 所以他会用数字来去做统计，来看小朋友的这个 improvement 或者是改变。Then qualitative research focus on understanding experience and meaning. It's used the methods like observation, interview, case study to explore how individuals thinking, feel, and behave. For example, a teacher might observe how the children interact during the play to understanding their social development. Okay, so the differences among the quantity and quality, one is using the numerical as a data, another one is more focused on the understanding of the social phenomena. Okay, so it's based on the information that provided by the participants. Then now we go into the sixth step of the scientific method. Okay, later maybe we will be start in 4 more minutes. Please later be joining in again. Okay, so the first step is to identify a problem. This means that recognizing the issues or the questions that needs to investigate, often based on the real life situation inside the classroom. The second way, review the literature. It involves reading the existing study or resources to understanding what is already known about the topics that you are doing on. Then third is specific purpose. By forming the research questions or hypotheses, this helps us to be focused on the study and giving the direction. Then collecting data is how you're selecting participants and gathering the relevant information through the methods such as observation, interview, survey. Okay, then lastly is the analysis data, how we organize and interpret the findings, the data that we have been collecting to understanding what towards understanding the data, what is actually the data is telling us. Then lastly, we report and evaluate. This means that we will be presenting the findings clearly and reflecting on the research process. Okay. So how is actually it's overall for the research process cycle? Okay, it's not a one-time activity. It means that research is a continuous cycle, and each studies can lead to the new question and further investigations also. So by identifying a research problem, it's involved recognizing the issues, justifying why it is very important, and understanding who actually is affected. Then next, we will be review the literature. We gather and analyze the informations, okay, the existing information to build a strong foundation of your study. Then after that, we specify the purpose of the research by developing the clear research question and hypothesis to guide the study. Then collecting the data, which include selecting participants and obtaining permission and gathering the relevant information amount on it. Then once the data is collected, will be analyzed and interpreted by organizing the findings, then explaining what it means. Then finally, we report and evaluate the research. It involves presenting the result clearly and reflecting on the study. So this is actually an important process in the cycle. Each complete the research and can lead to new insight, continuous improvement in the educational practice. So it means that 有时候你做完你的研究之后，你会发现一些新的面向的部分哈。Like last time, what you are doing for your play therapy is also， 你们其实在透过 interview 的过程当中，你就发现一些新的现象出现。So towards that is actually when you are doing your conclusion reporting part, you can be really highlighting out. This one is a special thing that among what you have been going through for your research progress. Okay, so coming into identify a research problem. Every research actually begins with a clear topic, issues, or challenges that need to be understood or be solved. So the good research problem is more than just a step on the issues. It will be clearly define what will be studied, explain why it's important, and identify who will be benefiting among your research. So in education, this could be something like children struggling with attention